This is VikesNow, and we're 6 days away from the NFL draft. I have my good friend and a ratings magnet. Every time she's on the show, we have like our biggest audience. I don't know what she's cooking, but let's do this again. Dakota, how you been?
Hi everyone. I'm doing pretty okay. I've got what my TikTok users like to call our magical Kirk Cousins here today, so it's gonna be a good day, I think.
Oh, right on. Okay, and then so give us some background. Do you how deep do you dig into the offseason of the draft? Do you keep a pretty close eye on the Vikings?
So in years past, not so much for me. Usually when the season's over, I'm like, okay, I guess I'll watch the Twins now or
Mm-hmm.
something. I don't know, but since kind of getting involved in Vikings Twitter and obviously like doing your podcast and the other Dustin's podcast,
Yeah.
I feel I feel a little bit more inspired to pay closer attention this year. Plus, now that I'm graduating college, which I'll have a lot more free time. So
Amen. And then where can the folks, the guys and gals, find you on Twitter and your other places?
yeah, so unfortunately, I'm no longer Dadam Thielen. I'm still in mourning about him going to the Panthers. But thanks to one of my lovely Twitter followers, my new handle on Twitter is Kirk's Minivan. So it's Kirk KIRKS underscore minivan, like the minivan, just because he is such a dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was hilarious. Otherwise, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok under Western Dakota.
Okay, perfect. All right, let's jump into this. I got 5 questions. They'll be similar to what I've asked other guests this week, but 'tis the season. I want everybody's draft pick. We'll get to that as our little climax here. But so your guy and a lot of our guys, Adam Thielen departed. So did Eric Kendricks. Dalvin Tomlinson got humongous money with the Browns. Patrick Peterson plays for the Steelers. So a lot of popular names. There wasn't a lot of guys comparative to the rest of the NFL teams who left, but a lot of the big names and big chunky contracts left the team. So, are you pleased to date without seeing any NFL draft with the Vikings offseason, or can you not overlook the Thielen ordeal?
Yeah, I'm so blinded by the loss of my love. No, good for everybody, going where they're going to get the money that they're getting. I think it's a little funny that some of the people were like, I'm going to get a ring, and then they go to the teams that they're going to, but I'm not gonna name names or throw shade. I'm gonna be so honest. I'm a little underwhelmed by everything that we're doing right now. I'm not surprised by the defensive signings. I think it's really interesting that we're going younger,
Mm-hmm.
which, being a Vikings fan for this long, our defense has been older. So I think it's about time that we go a younger, less known route. But like looking at the Falcons specifically, I'm a little worried that we're not utilizing this offseason the way that we could be. There is a TikToker I follow, Benchwarmer Brand, highly recommend him. He makes such funny content. He made a TikTok about how the Falcons are not doing what the South usually does, which is
Mm-hmm.
stay mediocre. They're like actually making moves to be a pretty competitive team this year. Plus, if you look at the Lions and the Bears, some of their signings,
Mm-hmm.
I still think that we've got a good shot at the NFC North. Knock on wood, of course, but I'm a little nervous that we're not doing what we should be doing. I'll be
It's
honest.
it's really weird to say this, what your last 2 sentences there, that the moment the Packers lose their Hall of Fame quarterback, we start to get nervous about the NFC North. I swear to God, it doesn't make
Yeah,
sense. It should be the other way around.
it.
That's why they play the games, though. We shall see. So I also want to point out
Yeah.
the eternal Thielen gal. Thielen left this offseason, and then you've pivoted to Kirk in your background, and he has an exit strategy, so to speak, where he's not under contract for longer in 2023. It makes sense that you'd be a little underwhelmed by this offseason because it's not really tailor made for you yet. We shall see what the draft brings, and we're going to get into that right now. So you can be as creative as you would like with this question. Tell me what you would describe as your wish list for this draft next Thursday night and Friday night and Saturday afternoon.
I'm probably not as creative as everybody on Twitter is. Everyone's been screaming about, a new wide receiver, XYZ. I personally, I'm on the let's get a good quarterback to sit behind Kirk this year. Let's get somebody who looks good now, but under the tutelage and the training and the experience of Kirk Cousins will be even better. I mean, I've said it before, I've said it again. Pat Mahomes and some other MVP level quarterbacks watch Kirk in the pocket. So getting a younger guy who's
Yeah.
already doing some good things to sit behind him. I think we've got another MVP in the making. I also want a younger defense, like I said, that seems to be where we're going, especially with Flores as our new defensive coordinator. I would love to build a more scrappy defense. And this might be a little bit of a dark horse. Maybe this is where my creativity is kicking in. I want a running back.
Yeah.
I don't know about everybody else. I'm seeing everyone else scream from the top of the heavens to get another wide receiver. I'm on the KJ Osborne hype train. I think that he's got the potential to be a WR2. This kind of alludes to a question you're going to ask me later, but I don't think Dalvin Cook is sticking with the Vikings come this next season. So I think we should take a look at some of the running backs. So I know it's not the best draft class for the running backs. I think we should look at somebody. I really do.
You know what's weird about you and me? Do you want to know? Okay, so our mini MINI dream scenario in this draft is to get the quarterback to learn behind Cousins and then give him the scepter in 2024. And we're labeled as the Kirk Cousins fanatics. I came up in this digital space. What I did to become somewhat popular was to dispel the myths regarding Cousins, because people make shit up about him, and it always irritated me. I'm like, why do you guys do this? You could just say you don't like him. You don't have to make stuff up. And so one of the most frequent criticisms in the last 3 weeks of anything that I tweet is that, oh, you're just going to go cheer for Cousins' team when he leaves the team, and go cheer for him if you like him so much. It's like, that's not how this works. So a point of order that two folks that enjoy Kirk Cousins' body of work are more than happy to move on to the next guy via drafting him now so he can mature for a year. I mean, this is objectivity, folks.
Right.
I'll never understand why we have to be put in this box.
Well, and on top of that, I mean, we even had an article that said Kirk Cousins went to Kwesi and was like, hey, I'll take a pay cut to stay, which disproved everyone's theory that he's going to be like, no, I want more money, which I've been saying the entire time. He loves this team. He's not going to do anything that jeopardizes him not staying here. And so when he went and was like, hey, I'll take a pay cut to stay with the team, and Kwesi's like, we're probably not going to do that. I think Kirk respected it. He knows that he doesn't have too much longer in his prime. He knows that with, usually with a regime change, there's going to be other changes that slowly trickle down, and we're starting to see the effect of that.
And the good part here is if they ignore you and me and they don't draft the next guy, or at least the heir apparent feel, then they can always just re-sign him next February, March. It's not like he has to leave. If he comes and balls out his second year with play caller for the first time in forever, yeah, if he throws 40 touchdowns, great. They can re-sign him. It'll be expensive, but they have that option. It's not like we have to do the obituary quite yet. You mentioned Dalvin Cook, and indeed, that is the next question. I want to know from your lips, where does Dalvin Cook play football in 2023, and where does Zadarius Smith play football? And you can perfectly say Vikings if you'd like for either one.
I don't know about Dalvin Cook. I know I'm in the minority on Twitter that Dalvin Cook stays. I don't think he stays. Mm-hmm. Just everything that I'm seeing, from the shade that he's been throwing on Instagram to the shade that his agent's been throwing, I don't think he's a Minnesota Vikings come September. I think he's probably going to be a day of the draft trade, especially because, I think as of this point, we should only have, 3 or 4 draft picks. So, yeah, I think he's going to be 5. Okay. I think he's going to be a draft pick obtainee. Mm-hmm. I think his trade, wherever it goes. I don't know. I'm not too sure where he ends up. I don't think it's going to be in the NFC North. I think if anything, I could see maybe Miami. I don't know why, but the Raiders are coming to mind right now. I'm not entirely sure why, but I don't know. Who knows? Maybe he'll like it out there. But no, I don't think he's Vikings. Zadarius Smith, it breaks my heart to say, don't think he's a Viking either. I don't think he's going to be traded in the offseason. Personally, I think it's probably likely, and this is my personal theory that I haven't said to anybody yet, but based on the way that he played the last half of last season, I don't think anybody really is interested in obtaining him. He wasn't all that impressive in the last half of the season. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Kwesi was like, look, I'll trade you, but you need to be impressive. Nobody wants you right now. And so maybe we see a couple games out of him where he does explode, and then off he goes elsewhere. I could potentially see maybe the Bears, maybe sticking with the NFC North, keeping on with his revenge tour of the NFC North. Because that's what he's doing right now, I guess. But unfortunately, it breaks my heart to say I don't think either of them are staying with the Vikings. My biggest thing with Cook is it seems that KOC is pass heavy, and I mean that is to be expected from a previous quarterback, but some of the passes that he does, you know, the trick flicks over to the running backs, Cook dropped most of those throughout the season, wasn't very impressive with those, whereas Mattinson, you know, he's got good grip on the ball when it comes to those short passes. So I hate to say it, but they're not Vikings anymore.
Okay. If I agree with you wholeheartedly, probably on both. Cook for sure, I'm convinced he'll go elsewhere. Za'Darius, the only thing that strikes me as weird is he said goodbye, was it 7 weeks ago now on Twitter, and I don't understand what the holdup's been. Like, you know, he flat out said, "Thanks everybody, I'm skedaddling," but nothing happened. So if indeed he came back, the Vikings would have like the deepest edge rushing room in the NFL. They'd have Danielle Hunter, Marcus Davenport, Za'Darius Smith, Patrick Jones, and DJ Wanham, and they'd be paying for it. They'd be paying the most money to edge rushers in the sport. So that leads me to believe that they signed Davenport for Za'Darius's job, and therefore, whether it's release or trade, that Za'Darius will go elsewhere. All right, 2 questions left. Let's assume that we don't get our wish, that there's no first round. Look, I'll put it out there. I don't know how you feel. I don't want Hendon Hooker in round 1. He's too old, and I don't like the injury. It seems like a guy that should be got in the 2nd or 3rd round. It's more than fine if you feel differently. If the Vikings don't get the first round quarterback that we have chatted about 5 minutes ago, who would you have your eye on as a 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th round quarterback that could learn behind Kirko?
I like Will Levis. I think he is around 1, though. I know everyone thinks that he's around 1. I'm going to be so honest. As like I've been saying, you know, I think we do need a quarterback that needs to sit behind Kirk. I'm not entirely sure really who I see round 2, round 3. I think I would mostly agree with you. My eyes kind of been on Deonte Banks, though. I know that's not a quarterback, but I think for me personally, that's our round 1. I know that's not really answering your question, but
you just answered the last question too. Wow, we're gonna have like a little 10-minute episode. No, it's all good. So are you saying that based on what you've observed from Hendon Hooker or Dorian Thompson-Robinson, UCLA, that if they don't get a quarterback in round 1, that they might as well wait until next year? Or would you support taking a flyer on one of the mid-round quarterbacks?
I would support taking a flyer in one of the mid-rounders. Again, I mean, obviously, whoever we pick isn't going to go in this week, you know, barring injury, which, again, knock on wood, please. Please stay healthy. But I don't think that we're going to waste our first round, which I personally would feel is a pretty well-placed first round pick for a team of our caliber. Of course, you always want to trade up to be, you know, earlier, but we'll work with what we got. But I don't think they're going to waste it on a first round quarterback. The Vikings do also have a little bit of a bad history with first round quarterbacks, looking at Teddy Bridgewater. He was a first rounder, right?
Yeah, he was the very last pick in the first round of the 2014 NFL
That's
draft.
what I thought.
You were probably in high school.
Yeah, I was.
Maybe middle school. My goodness.
He actually, fun fact, went into the Best Buy that I used to work at in Roseville a couple of times, which was pretty cool. But I think we're getting somewhere in the mid-round flyers. I don't think we're gonna get anybody that looks too exciting, but you know, give them a year, sit them behind Kirk, let them train with the best, let them train with Mullins and everybody. I think come next year there'll be something. It's interesting because Kwesi and KOC never really tell you what they're doing, but you kind of get a hint the second before they do it. It's like an earthquake, you know, you can just tell it's going to come before it comes. So I don't know. It's hard to really predict, but I'm not betting on a first rounder. If it is a first rounder, I'm going with Will Levis personally.
Okay. Yeah. He's been like Kirk, he's been a divisive creature during this draft lead up, because at the very start, he was probably a top 5 pick in general. And then folks questioned his maturity and allegedly slid all the way down to the Vikings. And now it seems like he's crept back up and might even be like the second or third overall pick. But this is nothing new. This is draft season. This is how the machine works. All right. So you stole your own headline. My question was nominate the Vikings first pick, no matter where that is in the draft. You said Deonte Banks, Maryland cornerback, CB. But tell me, do they stay put and get him at number 23, or do they trade back and he'll be there?
I feel like they stay put. Like I said, I personally think that where we are in the first round is pretty good for a team of our caliber. We don't really have a whole lot that we're shopping for, although people on Twitter will disagree that we need a wide receiver and that's what we should use our first round for, which, you know, more power to them if that's what they think. I'm thinking about the Rick Soza, KJ Osborne, and the clapback that the Vikings had there. So I'm going to put that one away. That's not mine to comment on. But I think we are looking at a younger defense, and I think that is what we're going to use our first round for. From what I've seen of Deonte Banks, I like him. I think he's going to fit really well into the Flores' system. He's the same age as a lot of the cornerbacks that we've been picking up in this offseason, so I think that the chemistry is going to work really well. From what I've been seeing too, Maryland runs their defense semi like a Flores system, so I think the fit is there. If not Flores, if not Banks, like I said, I like Will Levis. I like how this is going to sound so weird. I like how he looks like Kirk. I like how he plays like Kirk. And I think that's what we need. I think we need to stick in the Kirk Cousins range of quarterbacks. I've said it once, I'll say it again. I'm not a fan of the running quarterback. Most of those quarterbacks get injured. And then, you know, similar to the Eagles, Jalen Hurts gets hurt. They start to falter down, and then they have a clumsy put back together, and the Super Bowl happens. I could also see, I can't think of the name of that one guy from the University of Minnesota. I don't think he's a first rounder. He's a defensive player. I'd say second or third round for that guy. It's going to bug me, but I can't remember his name right now.
No, that's all right. It happens. All right. So what I've been doing just for fun, I've gone around pretty much everybody on Vikings Twitter that I know, and I've asked them for their first round prediction. On Wednesday, I'm going to tweet them out by player so everybody can kind of get the lay of the land on what we think is going to happen. So I haven't messaged you because I knew you'd be on the show. So I will put you down for Deonte Banks. You'll be on the Deonte Banks tweet on Wednesday morning. Anything else for the group before we sign off?
I just want to say to whoever is making all of those memes that say Vikings on them, you are my favorite people. Those are so funny. I love waking up to them. Someone made a couple of Captain America ones specifically for me, and they are my favorite things ever.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, you got the call out there. They're going to appreciate that. All right. What I'll do is I'll hit you up in about a month, and then we can kind of analyze what the draft looked like and then what the roster, and see if that underwhelming feeling you had has started to dissipate, or it's more than fair to revamp it. But that's all we got for today, and we'll talk to you in about 4 or 5 weeks, okay?
Sounds good. I'll see you guys next time.
All right.